All right, so you know what the hardest part about doing these reviews is? It's not the recording of the video, it's not the making of the video. I mean, I hardly edit. You know, it's not the incredible amount of time it takes for it to upload. The hardest part of making these is coming up with the descriptions that you put when you upload it to YouTube or to Facebook. It says, describe your video here. And sometimes I can have some fun with it. Like, if the actors are known for playing characters in other franchises, and there's a bunch of them in one place, I just use those. I did it with the Banker review. Nick Fury and the Falcon train the Beast to pretend to be them so they can, buy banks. But it is difficult coming up with those sometimes. Now, a movie like this, if it's bad, it writes itself. The invisible audience, the invisible premise, the invisible plot. But now, this movie has to go and actually be pretty good. So, what the hell am I supposed to do with that? Now, it's been stated many, many times on this show. Matter of fact, I should get another hoodie or t-shirt that says it. I am not a horror movie fan, and maybe that should be amended slightly. I actually don't mind a good horror movie or a good scary movie. To quote the denizens of Halloween Town, life's no fun without a good scare. What I am not a fan of, and I think I've mentioned this here multiple times, is I am not a fan of gore. I am not a fan of torture. These are things I don't want to watch. I don't find that fun in any way, shape, or form. It's just not something I enjoy. That is why I stay away from most horror movies, is that, these days, and again, I'm speaking in broad terms. I'm sure the true fans of the horror genre out there can correct me on this, but these days, a lot of horror movies just tend to be, how gory can it be? How original are the kills? It's like, I don't really care. What I tend to like in my, let's just, in broad sense, call them horror movies, I like suspense. I like psychological thrillers. I like it when, the simplest things are made scary. The most mundane of things is made terrifying. That was the brilliance of Jaws. Jaws barely had any real gore in it, but it made you afraid of water. There's an excellent movie. Everyone likes to pick on Joel Schumacher. He did an excellent movie a couple years back called Phone Booth, where a guy is being held hostage by a sniper in a phone booth, and it's pretty good. This is what made Hitchcock such a star. Was not the gore and the psycho of Psycho. It was the psychological element. That's why people were afraid of his films, is because it wasn't just a one and done, here's a gory thing and, that's it. It was, no, we're going to get in your head, this tiny little thing, those birds, they can kill you. The Doctor Who episode Blink, it's like statues. They can get you, and the only thing you have to do to make sure they don't is don't blink. Have you tried not blinking? So what I'm getting at is that I must admit to being taken by surprise by this movie, and that is kind of the whole premise, is they decided not to go with the cheap, fast, quick horror kills and, the over brutality or, physical pain or anything like that. This is all psychological. Everything about it is psychological. The unease of being alone in a quiet house and how every little creak can just be the house settling, is what my dad always said. What is that? Oh, it's the house settling. It's like, what does that mean? it could be that, or it could be someone coming to get you. You know, that figure in the dark, you know, could be just a mannequin, or it could be someone coming to get you and getting into your head and making you afraid of those tiny little things. And this movie decides to go that route. It decides to go an intelligent route with it and really have fun with the Invisible Man premise. It also goes a little bit extra mile because, again, what makes horror films work, what makes psychological films work, is that they tap into some latent fear that we have. And here, using the allegory of domestic abuse, and kind of, you know, because you hear a lot of domestic abuse survivors say exactly what the person in this film says. I told people what he did, but he didn't believe me. Or they didn't believe me, sorry. And this film decides to take that as a starting point and use that to jump off and go, well, what if, you know, what you were telling him truly was unbelievable? How would that work? So I think there is a lot of good going on, good planning and good ideas going in this movie. This is not a cheap knockoff, you know, using a name of a famous movie and a famous premise to, you know, sell our cheap slasher flick. Sorry, I don't know what happened to my diction right there. This is, let's use that premise and really do something interesting with it and have something interesting to say. All right. So from every standpoint, from a screenwriting standpoint, directorial standpoint, sound design standpoint, every box is checked, and it feels like they went through in just about every regard and said, what is the absolute smartest thing we could do here, and let's do that. You know, let's not be cheap, let's not be hacks, let's actually do something interesting with this premise, and they really did. One of the things that struck me directorially about this film was its use of sound. There's a large chunks of it where it's absolutely quiet as she's moving around the house or whatever, so you can hear every little creak and every, you know, little nudge of something, a door creaking or you know, metal being clacked, and that raises it up so when something does happen, you know, that big sound does happen, it's more of a, huh, you know, oh shit, I jumped, and I don't do that a lot at these kind of films. I jumped within the first 3 minutes of this. The very beginning is our main character, played by Elizabeth Moss, escaping from the fortress-like house her insanely rich husband has, and all the things she has to go through to get away from him. We don't ever see the domestic abuse. We don't see any of that. So it's all told to us. And in those first moments, she's escaping from the house in the middle of the night, and she's packing up, and she's so quiet, and it's such a quiet little moment, and she's getting everything, she's checking on him, and she's walking, and she kicks the dog food bowl, and it's like a clap of thunder, because everything before that is so quiet, and it makes you go, ugh! You know, and the movie does that a lot. Its sound design and its choice of where we're going to use sound and to what purpose we're going to use it is incredibly smart. I can't say the same for its music. God, I hate the music. The music of this, for this film, is what is becoming the standard horror movie, what I call the industrial soundtrack. Doesn't sound like there's any notes being played. Sorry. It just sounds like you're going, mrrr, 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 you know, and it's like you're leaning on whatever instrument, just making one really loud, annoying sound, just like, ah! So I hate the music in this. The music choices, I don't, that's annoying, it's not scary. Going back to Elizabeth Moss as our main character, boy, what an acting job here. playing a character who is being driven slowly, I don't want to say insane, but being driven slowly insane by all this chicanery, and seeing her, when she starts out the picture, she's already kind of agoraphobic and scared and paranoid and whatnot, and we just see that go and grow throughout the movie. It's a hard thing to do, and she does a great job of it. She's a good anchor for this film. Here's something, and this is something that's going to sound like such a backhanded comment, and I don't know how else to phrase it. One thing I noticed about Elizabeth Moss, I think she was a wise choice for this role. She is not what you would consider conventionally attractive. She's an attractive young woman. Don't misunderstand. But she's not one of these Barbie doll underwear models that they usually get to fill out the roles in these horror films. She looks like a normal person who is going through abnormal situations. And that really, really works. It makes the horror feel more imminent, more natural. I walked out of this movie a little bit paranoid, and I like that's also good pacing on the film's part in the early goings, is that they pace the Invisible Man chicanery. It starts out just little tiny things, very, very tiny things, and then gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it's like, then now you're in sci-fi horror movie territory. You wouldn't be surprised to find out this guy was a Tony Stark villain. That is one of those things, and it's one of those things you just have to accept when you watch any movie that, they always talk about the willing suspension of disbelief. So you, Mr. Rich sociopath wife beater, apparently are rich enough and smart enough that you have invented an invisible fucking suit. A suit that you could use for literally anything. I mean, every little kid has had that fantasy of, what if I were invisible? What could I get away with if no one could see me? And even if you don't want to use it, you could sell this to the military. You could, you're already rich, but you can be set for life. And what you choose to do with it is stalk your ex? Seriously? That's the best you could come up with? I mean, I get it within the allegory that it's going for, people like that. Yeah, they're fucking control freaks. They're assholes. So I get it, but it's just one of those things you're watching and you're like, really, dude? Really? Anywho. Elizabeth Moss does a great job in this movie. Another person does a really great job in this, and I saw her name at the end credits. I looked it up, and in the intervening time, I've forgotten it. So when Elizabeth Moss runs away from her husband, she goes and lives with her friend, who's a cop, and his daughter. His daughter, and I'm sorry I can't remember the actor's name at this exact moment, is played by the same young lady who was the lead in A Wrinkle in Time. She was in the one I watched last year with the cop and his niece, and he can call her from the future, whatever, and now I forget the name of that one. It just shows kind of where my brain's at right now. So she plays the daughter. Man, she's really good. Like, everything I see her in, she gets better. I remember not being that impressed with her in Wrinkle in Time, but I was actually very impressed with her. She has a very natural delivery, and a very fluid one. So she feels real. The movie feels very real for a lot of itself. And that's what what aids in that everything mundane is out to get you kind of feel. There are a couple times the movie segues ever so slightly into horror movie cliche, and you're just like, come on. There's a point where she finds her husband's cell phone up in the crawl space where he's left all these things that he's stolen, all these things he's using to torture her mentally with, and she finds a knife in a plastic bag. It's like, and she takes the knife out of the plastic bag and touches it. It's like, dumbass! You already believe this guy is invisible and is doing shit to set you up and to make people think you're crazy. So now you find a knife in a plastic bag. That doesn't automatically scream to you, he's preserving this for a murder, so let me get my fingerprints all over it. Minor thing. Not so minor. There's a part at the climax of this that I absolutely, it really bugged me. Because again, so much of the movie is so well done and so natural. But then there's this scene, obviously towards the climax, people think she's crazy. She's framed for various crimes. She's locked away in a mental institution. She finds a way to escape, but of course, the Invisible Man is there and he's chasing after her, and he's taking out all these security guards. The security guards come running in and they're all holding their guns, you know, like this. What? Where? You know, doing this kind of thing. Where is he? You know, what are you doing? Get down. And I'm just like, every fucking person who works in any kind of law enforcement or anything where they have to carry a firearm knows you carry the gun and you grip the gun with both hands. I know that, and I hate guns. But you've got these rent-a-cops coming here, whoa, like the, you know, fucking, like Barney Fife and the Fifettes. And you're like, and again, when I say this a lot too, when so much of your movie is so well done, something like that sticks out like a sore fucking thumb. It's like, why would they be doing that? You have an escaped prisoner, you'd be cupping the gun with both hands. You wouldn't be like, well, golly, Andy, I swear there was an invisible man. But the fact that that's kind of one of the only things that really wrecks this movie is pretty commendable in the grand scheme of things. What I really love, and I'm not going to spoil things, I'm not going to give away endings here. What I really love is, I love the ending of this. Again, not spoiling anything, I'm not going to ruin anything. You know, if you want to see it, go see it for yourself. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, the ending, you can pretty much guess how a horror movie ends. Of course, we're going to defeat the villain for now. But what this movie does with Elizabeth Moss's character is the last shot and the last bit, it really raises an ambiguous question of, is she now free? Or has she now become the monster? At least that's how I read it. Looking at the shot and looking at her facial expressions and kind of the things they established before that, I'm thinking, oh my God, has she fucking snapped? You know, after all of this mental torture, is this like her, you know, is this Dr. Frankenstein's creature breaking out and going into business for itself? Who knows? I mean, things like this are built to have sequels. The Invisible Woman would be a good one. I wish that if Universal really wanted to do a dark universe, you know, rebooting all of their old classic monster films into kind of a Marvel Cinematic Universe type thing, instead of that god-awful Mummy picture from a few years back, this is the film they should have led with. They should have stuck with what makes those movies good and what makes a good scary movie and built off of that. As it is, I think this is a great standalone picture. If it's a hit, which I think it has been, even though I'm seeing it rather late, I think they've already greenlit some other films in this same vein. So, you know, we might get something like that. But I think this one stands on its own very well. Good performances, very clever directing, couple minor annoyances. And really, compared to some of the films I've seen this year, compared to this year as a whole, minor annoyances are not the worst thing in the world. So, So, final grade for The Invisible Man. I'm going a B+ on this one. Good old-fashioned psychological thrills and chills. Good performances, good directing. There's a lot to recommend with this one. So, wrapping up here. So this is normally where I'd be talking about spring break at the movies, and that's going to happen. But I got to talk on this for just a second. This is my one time going on the record about this. I wasn't sure about going. For those who don't know, I don't know how you don't at this, depending on when you're watching this. So we're supposed to be on spring break this week, and we are, but due to the health concerns, they've closed the school for an extra week. They've closed, everything's being closed down. And I must admit, I've been trying to keep a level head about this. I feel I've done a fairly good job of it. But, you hear all this stuff, and you can't help but be a little paranoid, just like this movie. And I wasn't sure I was going to go to the movies today. I wasn't sure I was going to go to the movies at all. They're telling you stay in, don't go out, don't do this, don't do that, blah, 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 blah. But I did. And I'm glad I did. Because what I want to show you is that I'm okay. We're okay. We're going to be okay. All right? We're all going to get through this together. Just, if I can make one plea, I'd say this. Calm down. Don't panic. This is not the end of days. Now, I said this on my Facebook, and I had people coming at me, people aren't taking it serious and blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying don't take precautions. I'm not saying don't take it serious. I think it's a good thing that large gatherings, sports events and whatnot, I think it's good to postpone those for the time being, just till you get a handle on things. But there's a difference between not taking it seriously and saying don't panic. This is not the beginning of Planet of the Apes. This is not a zombie apocalypse. It's a bad case of pneumonia, folks, and that's not me saying that. That's doctors. Okay? So, yes, too many people sick with the same thing is bad. Not saying that. What I'm saying is, let's all take a deep breath. Let's calm down. And let's handle this rationally. Panic doesn't help. Okay? And as far as I can, until they close the movies, I will be bringing you spring break at the movies. Okay? Hell, I'm home for 2 weeks. I gotta do something. So I want everyone out there, be safe, be smart, take care of yourself, take precautions, but don't stop living your life. All right? Don't let it win that way. So that's all I have to say. That's my public service announcement. I'm not going to mention this again unless something else happens. I just wanted to say that because I know there are some people who are going to see that I uploaded this video and go, oh my God, he went out. Why? Oh, doesn't he take this seriously? I do. But I'm also not going to let it control me. So that's my speech. That's my spiel. That's my soapbox. Down off it. I am going to bring you spring break at the movies, and I hope you enjoy them. I hope if you're choosing to stay home, these, help you out. Let's give you something to watch. So with that in mind, as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.